Number one, Ibble Dibble here. Hello, friends. We are back for part 2 of my review slash analysis of Prince Harry's 60 Minutes interview with Anderson Cooper for Spare. Number 11. He repeatedly says William and Charles's concerns about Meghan were not and are not based in reality.
He was being told certain things by people within his office, and at the same time he was consuming a lot of the tabloid press, a lot of the stories, and he had a few issues which were based not on reality. And I was defending my wife, and he was coming for my wife. She wasn't there at the time, but through the things that he was saying.
But refuses to acknowledge the possibility that his concerns about them are not based in reality. He doesn't tell us what William said that was so delusional, so misguided, or such a lie. And I doubt he tells us in the book either. He pretends he's protecting William's privacy, but he's not. He's allowing terrible people's imaginations to come up with terrible things. You're already calling him a brute. Why don't you just tell us what he said and allow us to judge the truth of the matter? Number 12. Harry says they're not renouncing their Duke and Duchess titles because doing so, quote, wouldn't make a difference.
Critics say the Duke and Duchess are cashing in on their royal titles while they still can.
Why not renounce your titles as Duke and Duchess?
And what difference would that make?
First of all, there's no follow-up question. Anderson either doesn't follow up or it was edited out. Boo! These are the questions we watch 60 Minutes for. I cannot believe how soft a landing this rude dunce has been given. He seems to not realize that it's a question of loyalty, it's a question of integrity. If he is not actively serving the monarchy, suggests to anyone who will listen that he is living in exile due to the personal and professional failures of the monarch, his family, and his subjects, why would he want those titles? If he wants a family and not an institution, he can be just Harry, just a son, just a brother-in-law, just an uncle. But he doesn't want to be just Harry, does he? He wants to be the Duke of Sussex, and he wants his children to be a prince and princess. He's very dismissive of Anderson's questioning this self-evident hypocrisy. Number 13. Harry repeats his same sound bites from the Oprah interview, the Netflix series, and the ITV interview. History repeating itself.
The thing that's terrified me the most is history repeating itself.
You really feared that your wife, Meghan...
Yes, I feared a lot that the end result, the fact that I lost my mum when I was 12 years old, could easily happen again to my wife.
Never complain, never explain.
One of the criticisms that you've received is that, okay, fine, you want to move to California, you want to step back from the institutional role. Why be so public? Why reveal conversations you've had with your father or with your brother? You say you tried to do this privately.
And every single time I've tried to do it privately, there have been briefings and leakings and planting of stories against me and my wife. You know, the family motto is never complain, never explain, but it's just a motto. And it doesn't really hold.
There's a lot of complaining and a lot of explaining.
Endless.
Private being done through leaks.
Through leaks.
Yada, 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 as us New Yorkers like to say. I realize public speaking is extremely challenging, but for someone who claims to value authenticity so highly, I wish he would have paused a moment, composed genuine, fresh thoughts, and answered Anderson's questions more directly. Number 14. Harry says his constantly talking directly to the media is less harmful than his family leaking anonymously about each other.
Prince Harry continues to claim he would never leak against his family.
So now, trying to speak a language that perhaps they understand, I will sit here and speak truth to you with the words that come out of my mouth, rather than using someone else, an unnamed source, to feed in lies or a narrative to a tabloid media that literally radicalizes its readers to then potentially cause harm to my family, my wife, my kids.
In terms of delivery, how dare this imbecile condescend to Anderson in that didactic tone, speaking slowly like Anderson is an EFL student. How dare he? But beyond the delivery, what do you think of the content of Harry's argument? I thought this was interesting. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Number 15, Harry says he wasn't invited on the private plane chartered by someone in his family to get to Queen Elizabeth's deathbed. And Anderson doesn't press him on whether this was because Meghan was specifically not invited or not.
I asked my brother, I said, what are your plans? How are you and Kate getting up there? And then a couple of hours later, all of the family members that live within the Windsor and Ascot area were jumping on a plane together, a plane with 12, 14, maybe 16 seats.
You were not invited on that
I
plane.
was not invited.
I really wish Anderson would have asked this follow-up question. Number 16, Harry mentions Charles and William are not currently speaking to him, but refuses to understand why.
Do you speak to William now? Do you text?
Currently, no. But I look forward to us being able to find peace.
How long has it been since you spoke?
A while.
Do you speak to your dad?
We haven't spoken for quite a while. No, not recently.
It's so strange to me that he phrases it as
Us being able to find peace.
this is, again, a standard narcissistic statement. He believes everybody feels how he feels, everybody thinks how he thinks. He's just better at the game. He has no idea that William's peace is without him. How can you not see this, Harry? By not feeding your frenzy, they are getting some peace of mind, which is something you deny them at every opportunity. Harry's expression shows some genuine grief, not over William, but over his dad. I think he just fears losing his status or some future financial benefit. Number 17, in both the ITV interview and the 60 Minutes interview, he says that he and Meghan are willing to apologize for anything they've done wrong, and they've made that public time and again.
In the book, you called this a full-scale rupture. Can it be healed?
Yes, the ball is very much in their court. But Meghan and I have continued to say that we will openly apologize for anything that we did wrong.
I've literally never heard that before. Have you? I've never heard them offer to apologize for anything. I've only heard them demand apologies. I've been following them kind of closely for about 5 months now. Have you ever heard them say this before yesterday? Number 18. This is a very common narcissistic ploy, whether it's a narcissistic parent or a narcissistic partner. When their victim, the person they're abusing, complains, they'll frequently ask their victim to list everything they've ever done wrong and the price the victim thinks they should pay, but not because they're truly curious, truly seeking reconciliation, honestly trying to improve themselves, or any of the other motivations you'd hope for. It's so they can deny and rationalize their behaviors and otherwise negotiate their victim's understanding of the past, present, and future, and what should be required of the narcissist going forward in bad faith.
But every time we ask that question, no one's telling us the specifics or anything. There needs to be a constructive conversation, one that can happen in private, that doesn't get leaked.
It was hard for even Anderson to hold a straight face through that one. Harry doesn't know what he's done wrong. The entire world knows what he's done wrong. But he expects, what, a full accounting from Palace Communication offices? And it's their fault if they don't pay his narcissistic supply tax in a timely manner? Oh, and by the way, if the victim is unwilling to admit that it's actually their fault and their flaw, and that they're only upset because they're simply unable to forgive the narcissist, and therefore the smaller, lesser person,
I assume they would say, well, how can we trust you? How do we know that you're not going to reveal whatever conversations we have in an interview somewhere?
the narcissist then accuses their stubbornly unwilling victim of being a calculating liar who's actually been abusing and victimizing the narcissist all along, when the narcissist never actually did anything wrong. So how dare the victim even suggest it?
This all started with them briefing daily against my wife with lies, to the point of where my wife and I had to run away from my country.
It's a total rewriting of history, total total projection. That's what I'm seeing Harry and Meghan do to Charles and William, if not Camilla, Kate, the British press and public as a whole. Number 19, Harry expresses that he and Meghan were forced to flee. That's a quote, forced to flee the UK because his family kept briefing against them in the press.
My wife and I had to run away from my country.
He honestly doesn't seem to understand how delusional he sounds. Even if this were true, it would not be believable. It's a long leap from being displeased with unflattering news items about yourselves to physically fleeing because your lives were in danger. It's longer than a transatlantic leap, I'd argue. I also just don't think it's true. I think if there were 10 times the leaks coming from the palace as usual, 100 times the leaks coming from the palace as usual, we have to look at what changed at the palace. Meghan, her presence. Either she was leaking, her friends were leaking, or her bullied staff was leaking. My last takeaway, number 20, Harry seems to think that his family and the press treated him with less deference than William as the spare.
When did you first hear that term, the spare?
Probably my earliest memory back is probably when I was a teenager.
Was that a term people used in front of you?
It wasn't regularly used by the family in different scenarios, but there's a general understanding and a feeling that is, again, projected across the newspapers. I don't know where William and I would be on a relationship level if the British press weren't involved, but we would certainly be a hell of a lot closer than we are now.
How does the British press play into your relationship with William?
His life is very much chosen for him. Perhaps my life wasn't chosen for me, but equally I felt like I needed to make something of my life so that I didn't end up as a spare's spare. There was an expectation for him, and there was probably an expectation for me. And certainly from the British press's standpoint, it was, you're the spare. We can do whatever we want with you. And you're not allowed to defend yourself, you're not allowed to kick back, especially within the family construct that we have.
It's really, really bizarre how he simply cannot separate his relationship with his family from his relationship with the press, how he can't separate the feelings that his family has for him from the feelings the UK media expresses for him. It's hard for me to tell if he's genuinely this mixed up or if he believes we're all incredibly naive about how the press works. Also, that egotistical element of he felt he needed to build a legacy quickly before he became the spare's spare. That's all on you, Harry. There was no pressure on you to build any kind of legacy. You were welcome to live in peace, luxury, and relative silence until the end of your days. You failed to do your only job, the job you were born to do, support your brother, your father, and the British crown for selfish, egotistical reasons. Whenever you dare to act, the people will dare to criticize. That is the nature of being a public figure. If you were not ready to become a public figure, you should have not tried to establish any sort of legacy of public recognition. I don't think Charles and William were ever trying to dim Harry's shine. I think they simply didn't share his sense of urgency. I would argue that they simply treated him differently because of his role and personality. That seems obvious, right? But what do I know? Let me know. Did you see the 60 Minutes interview? Do you agree or disagree with my takes? Do you think this interview will help him sell more books? Do you think this interview will make him more or less beloved in the eyes of the public? I'm very curious to hear your opinions. Let me know in the comments below, and I will be back shortly with my takeaways from the ITV interview. Toodles! Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.